Well, here we're going to start part 2 of our critique. Looking at the numbers, I think we're probably going to have 4 total parts to this because there are quite a few things to look at. But that means I am going to try to blaze through these fairly fast, stopping really when there's something special to show you that maybe you haven't seen before or to really emphasize something. So let's get on with this. We'll go to our first one. And here we have a nice doorknob on a gate, it looks like, or a screen of some kind. The shot really is right in here with the doorknob with the patina on it, showing the dirt on the connecting wall, little of the pattern of the screen. But down here, this is all out of focus. This is supposed to be a max focus shot, but focus ends just below the doorknob. So that out of focus part actually isn't helping us here. But I think all we really need to do is crop in on this a bit. We can certainly get rid of this out of focus area. We can get rid of a little of the dirty wall. We'll save some of it to show this is really a well-used gate. Lots of hands have been on this. We need a little bit of this screen so we understand what the door is actually made of. Maybe I'll bring this out just a little. And then there really is the shot of the doorknob that shows everything we saw before, tells us everything we need to know, but doesn't really get too confusing as to what it's all about. Well, here we have one of the strongest leading line shots I've seen in a long time. This deep depth of field shot really is deep depth of field, amazingly so. Everything from almost right at the camera edge all the way back to the bushes back in here. Well, okay, so it shows deep depth of field. I'll give you credit for that. But let's examine what happened in the photograph. We've got this unbelievably strong leading line. I mean, this is like looking sideways down an alpine slide or something, or at a steep bank on a bobsled run. You can't help but go zinging down here into what? Into just dark bushes with nothing particularly interesting to see there. So when you're going to give me this kind of movement, as strong as this is, you got to make it go to something that I want to see. You've got to help me use this to point out the main point of interest. Is it really this bush? No, it's probably this slide itself. So what does this do for us? This takes us out of the picture in both directions. So this in here is where our shot is. So it's a good start. It's a cool idea, but I would come back and rethink this, or at least put something cool down in here for us to see. Ah, we have a nice flower. Good shallow depth of field here. This works out really pretty well. The only thing I would like to have seen is if you had taken, I don't know, maybe another step or 2 steps counterclockwise to your left so that you filled in this gap a little bit. That would have been really nice because this is kind of distracting. This background element's cool, but we could tighten this up a little. I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to make a duplicate layer just so I can get back to the original and you can see it pretty well. So the first thing I'm going to do is come in and select this fairly tightly. And now I'm going to put this on the clipboard with a Control-C, and then I'm going to paste it back on top with a Control-V. And you can see over here what this did is give me a new layer with this selection on it. So now I can move that over where I want it. And because it's on another layer, I can make this into a layer mask, use a black brush, okay, so now I'm going to flatten this and crop it to get rid of that extra part. Maybe even come into this a little bit. And now we've got a much tighter shot. This would have been better to shoot it this way, but as you can see, you can come in and make some adjustments after the fact. This is a still life. This is an art type shot. Don't stop with what you're forced to try to collect. Feel free to go in and make this your arrangement, just as if you were painting it. You have the ability to do that. So do it. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Here we have a nice depth of field shot. This part is really very cool in here. All this texture and the play of this yellow or yellow-green looking lichen against this blue rock. It's a cool palette in this shot. But your shot is here. So let's make it that. And I think because of the way this wave works, this upright curve, I think once we've gotten rid of all this part that isn't doing anything for us, we could actually maybe turn this into a vertical. I don't know. Let's see. And now we can really concentrate on it. It would be so much better if this part of this branch were also in focus. This is okay. This is background. This can go out. This can go out. But the parts of the main subject would be really nice if they were sharp. And we can't simply crop into here because then we lose all this cool stuff coming in through here. So this is a shooting issue, not necessarily a processing issue. But this is a good eye to catch this. This is really cool in here. Well, here we have the family in the park tableau. The problem is the main engagement with the photographer is here. It's with this little guy up pointing at Mom, I assume, who was shooting this. Here's Dad and the other kid and all of the gear it took to haul them out here to the park. This certainly shows it's a park, but you have to decide, is this shot about the park that just happens to have your family in it? Well, it might have been if it weren't for him. But now it's a shot about the family, who happens to be in a park area. Almost nobody has a yard like this, so I would suggest that you make it clear what this is about. Is it about the trees up here? No, not really. You could even, unless you're selling all this carriage, you could even come in more like that and start to really tighten this up a bit. But this guy really needs to be sharp for this shot, because this is the action. He's the one doing something, engaging the camera, interacting with the camera. But here we have a really nice shot I'm assuming it's the same kid, probably roughly in the same place, sitting alongside the sibling over here. Well, I think this is pretty cool. And there's not very much I would do with this. I might vignette it. Might come in just a hair tighter. We can't get too tight on this side because this one is looking off this way and we need to give a little bit of room. He's looking right at the camera. We can move right in on him. And at the same time then get rid of this distracting post. And in doing so, we put this in more of a standard format. And now the only thing I would do to this, when you've shot an open shade is beautiful. The lighting is soft. It shows off features really well. It's a portrait photographer's dream with one exception. It's cold. There's a lot of blue in that open shade light, and it's not particularly friendly to skin tones. So in the old days in film, you put what was called a skylight filter on your camera. That was a very pale warming filter, and it brought up the skin tones that when you were shooting an open shade, it made them warm again. We can simulate that a little bit. If we go into image adjustments, photo filter, now we can act as if we're filtering the camera. So we'll go here. It defaults to this warm one. There are a bunch of them here you could pick from, several warming filters of slightly different colors. This one is okay to start with, just to show the effect. So here's with no effect. You can see how blue this is. Now we can warm this tone up slightly. And if you had a shot where the background was fine, you did not want to warm it up, you wanted to maintain that cool blue on the blanket, then do this as 2 layers. And with a layer mask, either just take the layer with the filter on the kids and leave this blue, or the other way, take this blue and mask for the kids. But that would let you solve both, and that's something you could not do in the film world because you were going to filter everything when you did it. I might also draw a little attention to them with a slight vignette. So let's go to multiply, layer mask. Now with a bigger mask, I'm going to bring him back down just a touch. I'm going to switch back to a white brush, bring my opacity down, way down, because I want it just a slight effect to darken him. Just there we go. Too much. Let me go back a brush. And now we're really concentrating on the kids. And you can see how that vignette is going around the outer edge. Okay, nice shot. Well, this is a cool shot of the airport. I don't know where you shot this from, but it's a beautiful overview of this terminal and all the way across the bay, out onto the island, out onto Coronado, the bridge, North Island. I mean, this really takes it all in, and the depth of field is perfect for this shot. You did a very, very nice job of this. So, truthfully, I don't think I'd do anything to it. It'd be nice if it were a little bit brighter. The day is a little overcast. Look how soft the shadows are under the airplanes. But nevertheless, this is nicely done. I might go in and very subtly get rid of this thing down here right in the foreground because it makes me want to know what it is. Other than that, I don't think I'd do anything to this. Good job. Well, here we have a nice portrait of the Southwest employee here. This is really, really very nice. If you were going to put this in an 8x10 frame, you would have to crop it a little bit the 35 millimeter format doesn't fit. And that could work to our advantage because we could come in a little bit from this side and let this leading line move for us. His body is aimed in this direction, so this gives us a little room for all that to move. So I would take that. I would probably vignette this background down just a little so that he stands out a little more. But this is a beautiful shot. He did a very, very nice job of this. Definitely shows off the subject well. I assume he's pleased with this shot. If not, he ought to be. Well, good old University Heights. I think this works really pretty well. It's just a little light. You've got a hard problem. This is in shade, or it looks to be. And this is all brilliantly lit up. So what I might do is want to darken this just a touch down in the highlights. Let me see if we can pull that off with a curves adjustment. You know, maybe let's lock all of this down so we can't mess with this anymore. And we'll bring the highlights down just a little more. So there was our before. After we put a little more detail in here, we've still got some good contrast down in the foreground. The only other thing I would do is maybe get rid of a little of the sky, turn this into a little more of a panorama, because you've got this sign that almost begs to be done as a panoramic shot. Nice. Nice. If you really were into cropping this, we might come into the edges of that. We get rid of the stop sign. Still the same shot, but it's a little bit tighter. I'd come up some from the bottom if that was what we were doing. But the original is nice enough. Just feel free to play with your shots and try them with some different views, different croppings. It's nicer to do it in the camera, but once you've made it this far, do feel free to play with them. See what you can get out of it. Well, this is an interesting pattern on this fence or wall, this pierced wall of some kind. Here's where the shot is focused. Here's the depth of field part of that. This doesn't tell us anything additional, so I would come in. Maybe a little bit more to that. Bring this bottom up a little. Because here's where our real image area is. And we have the fruit of the lemon tree here. Here really is where our shot is. It's up with the lemons. So it'd be nice if you had shot a little bit higher, just a little bit more. This is a nice soft background. It makes this stand out. But enough is enough. So number one, let's see what happens if we can concentrate more on the real subjects in here. Maybe even a little bit more here. Okay. Now I think our issue is we're just a little bit light, just a little bit blown out. So I'm going to darken the whole thing, and I'm just going to do it with a multiply layer and cut this back. That's at 100%. But you can already see I'm bringing quite a bit of texture in on that front lemon. which I like. So I'm going to make this a reversed layer mask, use a white brush, set my opacity up a little so I can see what's happening. Okay, now we're a little bit better. I do want to darken some of this. You can see we've created a pretty bizarre little mask in here. I'm going to flatten that. And now I'm just going to use the burning tool to darken some of this, to bring out the textures. And in some cases the color. A lot of times color is slightly enhanced when it's ever so slightly underexposed. And I've got a couple little offending light spots in these opposite corners and down here. So I'm just going to go back to my normal brush tool. I'm going to pick up this green right in here. I'm going to set my brush to darken so that it only paints on these lighter areas. And now I can concentrate more on the yeah, I didn't like that. Let me cut this way back. There we go. Now we can concentrate on the lemons and let the rest of it go. This would make an interesting card of some kind. You could put text and all in here, but there's a lot of dead area. And here's really where the shot is. So like we did with that other flower, we could grab this lemon and pull it over, make it more of this shot and turn this into a vertical. We could even bring it in here. We could totally recompose this shot. You do understand that, right? That we could come in let's put it on the clipboard, paste it back on a new layer. Bring it into maybe here. We have a problem. Again, if you'd shot a little higher and we had more of this, we could make this work a little better. But I think you can see what we're about to do when we work with this. Let's make this a layer mask. Need a black brush to paint through. And then I would need to crop into this. Again, we need the rest of this. When you're looking at something and you're thinking, boy, wouldn't it be nice if that element were somewhere else in the picture? Wouldn't that make it for a much nicer picture? Well, try to arrange it that way if you can. But if you can't, make sure you've got enough of it in your shot that you can recompose it. It's a still life. It's a work of art. It's not a narrative shot saying this is exactly how this lemon tree looks. This is about lemon trees generally. So feel free to play with that. Okay, part 2 is done. We'll get on to part 3 in a moment. See you then.